Good morning, guys. Today's video is going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to try not to make it super long. But it's something that I kind of want to talk about because there's not a whole lot of awareness out there. It's something that I didn't even know existed until about a month ago. And when I realized that, hey, I'm not crazy, it made a huge difference. And I feel like there's so many other women out there that may be going through this and they don't know what's going on because I didn't. So as you can tell by the title of this video, what I want to talk about is PMDD, or premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I always have trouble saying those two last words. It's something that about a couple of weeks ago that I was diagnosed with, and it just made everything make sense. It just made everything make sense. I couldn't figure out why this was happening to me since about the end of 2019 to the present date. And if you don't know something about me, and I think that's why it's from the end of 2019. If you don't know, if you haven't been to my channel before, welcome. And I also have cystic fibrosis. And because I have cystic fibrosis, my cycle has been irregular for most of my teen life, through my teens. I didn't even start my period until about 16, and for that period of time between whatever year I turned 16, I can't do the math in my head right now, through 2019, it was very irregular. It was not consistent, so I couldn't really track. And towards the end of 2019, or maybe like the middle of 2019, it started becoming more of a consistent. And especially since I started Trikafta last year and my entire body has just been healthier, it's on a very consistent schedule now. And so I've shared in the past on how I have dealt with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and I couldn't figure out why, for whatever reason, it always came on this cycle. It wasn't all the time. And I noticed, because I track my periods, I started noticing, hey, this is always happening about a week and a half to a week, sometimes 2 weeks, depending, before my cycle. And then the minute my period would start, poof, it's gone. And for the first 10 or 12 days afterwards, completely fine. I felt like myself, I felt happy, I felt peaceful, I felt calm, and it was like whatever was going on in my brain had just vanished, and it kept repeating like this every single month. So I didn't really understand. I had been diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and I knew from seeing family members go through depression that it wasn't really the same. Yes, during that week and a half time frame it was the same, but depression doesn't just suddenly vanish overnight, at least in my experience. So about a month ago, maybe about 3 weeks ago, I finally brought it up with my therapist, and I was like, well, for one, I was a little bit scared to tell her the entirety of the truth because I'd always had this stigma where if you tell a therapist that you have suicidal thoughts, then they're gonna want to, cart you off to the hospital. And for me, at least, I knew in my heart and my head that when this would happen, these thoughts would happen, I didn't want to die. In fact, it was the exact opposite. They usually scared the crap out of me because I'm like, what is going on with my brain? Why is this happening? And it was something that I felt very ashamed of. And the same with the cycle of all this. I kind of felt this shame and this embarrassment and guilt that for whatever reason I could always get over it, and then it always came back. It's like, why wouldn't it just stay away? So finally, about a couple weeks ago, I shared with my therapist about how this was happening and how I had tracked it, and I was like, what is going on with me? Like, am I crazy? What's going on? And that's when we started talking about PMDD, and I kind of was like fitting every single symptom that she was listing off. And I'm not gonna list them all here, but you can look it up. And I would caution against like diagnosing yourself with this. I would speak to a professional, but I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. And so so basically what it is it's an extreme, and this feels like not describing it enough, but basically it's an extreme form of PMS. It's when your hormones are so out of whack and something rising, I forget it's not estrogen, I think it's something else. Whatever hormone is like really elevated right before your cycle is basically your body is freaking out. And during that time frame, it can cause depression, it can cause anxiety. Now, for me personally, I do know I still struggle with anxiety even when I'm outside of that sphere of time, but it definitely is elevated during that period. It can cause thoughts of suicide, it can cause thoughts of harming yourself in other ways, it can cause just tiredness, exhaustion, lack of appetite, just all this stuff that is basically, I saw, I'm now in a group of people on Reddit of that suffer with the same thing, and people call it Hell Week, and I'm like, yeah, that's about a very accurate way to describe it there. So during that period of time, whether it's about, for me it's typically like a week and a half, so once I finally had that diagnosis that, oh, this is what's happening inside of my brain, and like I said, it started about towards the end, I would say around the holiday time of 2019, straight through to the present day. And there's definitely been things that exacerbated it as well, with COVID and Panda dying and the getting used to the reactive hypoglycemia, and all of that just kind of like elevates it up. But even if my life is going great and there's nothing going wrong at that point in time, it can still happen because it's the hormone cycle, and it is literally like flipping a switch. Like the day that I start bleeding, there's me again. And so lost my train of thought. So anyway, so then once I'd finally gotten that diagnosis, for one, having a name to it took away some of its power. Because when you don't know what's going on, you're like, for me anyway, I felt, like I said, I felt crazy, I felt ashamed, I felt like I was causing it, and I was just overthinking and making things happen that maybe I was making it up, you know, all this crazy stuff that goes through your head. So just having a name to it took away some of its power. Now, saying that, I'm starting to enter that week right about now, and it's like, well, yeah, it doesn't make it completely easy, but it takes away some of the power. And I am now starting on the journey of finding ways to potentially, I wouldn't say treat it, because it's not treatable in the specific sense of you take something and it magically goes away. It's something that I'm gonna have to deal with the rest of my life. But start things to find ways to manage it, I guess is the best way to put it. Kind of like CF. You can't treat it, but Trikafta and all this other stuff helps me manage it better. Give me a better quality of life. So I am now starting down that road, and the first road that I'm going, well, the first road that you try is like dietary changes, which I was already doing because of my blood sugars anyway, so I kind of knew that that wasn't really gonna fix it. And there's, you know, coping skills that you develop, which I have, doing puzzles, walking yachty, hanging out with Bolt, as much as you can hang out with the fish anyway, playing with the cats, reading, listening to music, going for a walk, just some of my coping skills. So you get those to kind of get you through those little periods of time. And I can say talking to people as well is a major one for me. Just being able to talk to somebody honestly and get what's on my heart out is a big help. But there is medications, and at first I was kind of a little resistant to this idea because I already have so many medications on my schedule already. I think about 11 of them with the CF, and also dealing with the blood sugars and all that. I was just like, eh. But I came to this point about 3 weeks ago where I was just like, you know what? give me what you got. So the first thing that we're going to pursue is birth control, because we were talking over this, which is kind of funny thinking about, because I've literally never planned on having kids. Even if I didn't have CF, I don't think I would ever have kids, because as much as I love Mason and hanging out with him and my nephew, and I love babysitting, I just don't think I'm mom material. So you know what? I don't honestly ever plan on getting married. So it's just kind of funny to think about. But so anyway, we're gonna pursue birth control because there is potential for it to kind of smooth out those hormones a little bit and just make it a little bit easier. So I actually have an appointment with my GP tomorrow to get a referral to an OBGYN and kind of pursue that direction. There is some complications with that because Trikafta and birth control are kind of hard to splice together, but we will figure it out. I would love to work with my CF team as well on this, but for the time being, CF clinic is closed because of COVID, so that's another complicating factor. But right now, the important thing is just to get the referral to the OBGYN and then go from there and kind of stitch things together. If for whatever reason I can't tolerate the birth control or it's just not working out, there is the possibility of pursuing, I think, SSRIs or something like that during that 1 week. That's something that I'm a little bit still iffy about, because not that I'm like have anything against medication. I've seen it work wonders for other people, but just for me personally, it's still something that I think I would have to take time to really think about. But for me, I'm ready to pursue the birth control route and see if it can help, because anything that can take just a little bit of that edge off makes a huge difference. So I just kind of wanted to share my story, and it's not a complete one. It is one that is in the process of seeing what'll work, but I wanted to put it out there because once I found out that there's actually like 3 million other women that deal with this, and once I got on that Reddit page and just talked to other people, it's like, wow, just having somebody that understands what you're going through. And I tried to search things up on YouTube, and there was a couple of videos, but not a whole lot. And I understand that in today's society and times, talking about mental health is getting better, but talking about periods and hormones with that maybe is still a little bit like a taboo subject, which I really think it shouldn't be, since half the population deals with it, you know. We all go through it. But yeah, so I encourage you to go out there and do your research on PMDD, and if you think it's something that you might be suffering with, then go to a professional, go to your doctor, go to a therapist and talk to them and tell them. And it wasn't easy. Like I said, it took 1.5 years for me to get the diagnosis. And now that I finally have it, I have the ability to have hope, and hopefully through these different processes, I will be able to get some of my life back. And like I said, for like 2 weeks out of the month, 2 to 3 weeks out of the month, I'm myself, and I would prefer not to spend a week out of the month, you know, not myself, because it is hard. But if you are somebody watching this who has PMDD, then I would love for you to leave a comment down below and tell me if you've had any treatment options that have worked, and also just extend a hug, because especially with you know, especially the last 2 years, like 2021 and stuff, it has been a roller coaster for everyone. And just remember that your brain can be your own worst enemy sometimes, because your brain's like, hey, you know, this would be a great idea, and your mind, rational side of your head's like, would it though? Would it really though? And then when you enter out of that week, it's just like, really? Really? that's about what it's like. So I just want to spread some awareness, and hopefully this isn't super long. And that's all I've got for today. So I'm just gonna go to Walmart tonight. I need to pick up some test strips and just hang out for the day. But thank you guys for watching, and let's make this something that's more talked about, because I think it's pretty important.